Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. This is your home for 100% certified green. That's right, we've been certified green, zero carbon emissions. This is healthy Bible study. Come on in, it's good for you. We're going to look today at verse 3 in Psalm 130. Psalm 130, again, is a member of the Ascent Psalms. This is for the song for those ascending. So if they're heading on up, this is a song of penitence. We saw yesterday, out of the depths, I have cried unto thee, O Lord, and we talked about the 6 conditions of prayer and how those first 2 verses teach us that. And verse 3, we're just going to look at verse 3 today, comes in with a punch, with a bang. Let's read verse 3. If thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquities, O Lord, who shall stand? Well, the answer to the question is nobody. So, first of all, if thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquities, the idea is that he would look at the life of the individual and say, there is or there isn't iniquity. So he's judging us by our sin. Is there sin in this life? Is there sin in this life? And of course, you know where we begin in verse 1, out of the depths. It's funny, isn't it, how once you find yourself in the depths, you suddenly become very well acquainted with your own sin, as well as your own mortality. And you find out how quickly sin can lead to mortality. So, O Lord, if thou shouldest mark iniquities, this is what the person in the depths is thinking of. This is what Jonah thought about. He was thinking about God having cast him out and how there was salvation in no one else. And so he has to go only to God for his deliverance from the belly of this hell that he talked about. So here in verse 3 in Psalm 130, if thou, O Lord, shouldest mark iniquity, he is not saying God is going to mark iniquity, because there's something wonderful that's going to happen. We're going to read that tomorrow. But if he were to mark iniquities, is there anybody who would, pass the test? And he says there, O Lord, who shall stand? So the implication is, if you do that, who is there that's going to be able to say, yeah, I passed that test. I don't have any iniquities. Well, there's nobody. So don't think that you're without sin, and don't think that all that good stuff you think you're doing is going to counteract the sin in your life. There are not scales in which your good is weighed against your bad, which your righteous deeds are weighed against your sinful deeds. There is no scale there. You see, your sinfulness is so corrupt, and your heart is so black, and your nature is so wrong that there's nothing you can do to correct your condition. Nothing whatsoever. And so who would be able to stand? It may be the man who had more good works than bad, perhaps, but there's not a man like that. Perhaps the man who doesn't have any sin, but there's not a man like that. There was once, and his name was Jesus, and he lived in Galilee, and they called him the Christ, and he died on a cross, and that sinless God-man who died on that cross took your sin and placed it upon himself. So if the Lord should mark iniquities, well, we would all be marked, wouldn't we? We all stand guilty before the bar of God. So out of the depths, I understand my guilt. Out of the depths, I understand my iniquity. Out of the depths, I understand that there's only one person who can hear my voice and do anything about my condition in the depths. Because in the depths, I get it. I know I'm a sinner, separated from God, a holy God who cannot abide sin and must judge it. And so I call out and ask that God to hear my voice. Lord, hear my voice. Let thine ears be attentive to the voice of my supplication, because it's my sin that has brought me to the depths. Find out what the good word is tomorrow in verse 4. I'll see you then on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.